ようこそどうぞはじめまして
Hello everyone, welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. This is our first, quote-unquote normal episode of the season. We've watched a couple more episodes of all the shows that we were talking about last time. Some were good, some were bad, and some took very, very, very bad turns, as we'll probably get to.
To put it mildly.
So, we'll see what shows passed the 3-episode test and which didn't, but, I think there's still a couple of good things for us to watch, or at least interesting. We also had a couple shows that we didn't get a chance to talk about in the last episode that were either not out or we didn't have time to get to them, so we'll get into a couple of those. So, yeah, to get things started, let's just introduce everybody. I'm Jel. I am joined by Iro.
I'm still here. Not dead yet.
I am joined by G.
What's good, everyone?
And we have Zig with us this week, once again.
I didn't anticipate that I'd be talking about perhaps the worst episode of anime I've ever seen, but that's how things go, I guess.
Ooh, yeah, there's the...
Fall season 2020, baby!
Yeah there's the teaser.
All
2020 never
here.
stops.
Yeah, there's the teaser there for you. What could have possibly been the worst episode of anime that Zig has ever seen? But
I was going to assume it was like an episode of like Digimon or something, honestly. But
Also bad. Let's
I mean, yes, like, that's not good, let's just put that out there, but no, not that.
Kamen Rider Saber.
from what you guys were saying,
or some token.
from what you guys were saying, the new Digimon does have some contenders, right?
It sucks.
But, yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure there's anything in there that would approach worst episode ever status, but like,
What about the stuff in Kamen Rider?
There's been some bad stuff, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But first, we had a couple leftover first looks I wanted to mention. I wanted to give a quick shout out to Kuma 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 Bear, which I made a lot of jokes about, but actually turned out to be pretty fun. It is one of those, video game isekai, but like more of a slice of life thing with a female lead type show, which seems to be a trend
Like
lately.
Shield Hero. No, not Shield Hero. What's the one where
No,
she has a
definitely
shield?
not.
The other
Girl
Shield
Shield
Hero.
Hero.
Yes,
The good Shield
Bofuri.
Hero.
Yes, Bofuri is what Ira was talking about.
What is the full title, please?
Something I don't want to take any damage, or I don't remember what the full title was.
Oh, fine.
just go Google Bofuri, you'll probably find it.
Bofuri fans.
But she has a shield, yes, in that one. But yeah, this one was maybe like slightly more serious because it's like true isekai.
Oh,
so like
great.
she's actually in another world, but it's also hard to take it more seriously because she's wearing a bear's costume.
Is this some like fucking? I'm wearing the highest tier armor, which is the like goofy bear suit from that event or something.
Yeah, kind of. I'm not going to get into the whole like explanation of why she has a bear costume, but it's kind of, it's still that type of show. It's more of like the chill, laid back slice of life type of vibe, and it was pretty fun. I like that the main girl is not an idiot, which also seems to be like a trend with these shows.
Right.
She's actually like a believable, like likable human being to a certain degree.
Okay, not a gamer
Like-
then.
Like, no, yeah, she's actually has some human sympathy, but I like the most shocking moment I think of this anime season was like, if you look at her character design and think about what voice, just imagine what her voice would sound like, and then when she actually sounds like a grown-ass woman when she's talking, that was like the most shocking moment of the season for me.
I'm gonna look this up. Kuma
Yeah,
Bear.
she looks like a little anime girl in a bear suit.
Okay, yep.
So
All
if you
right,
can imagine what her...
I'm gonna pull up this video. Alright, yeah, alright, I see where you're going, bro.
Yeah. So when she actually has like a normal human voice, I was
Wow,
actually...
yeah, I will admit, yes, I'm a little caught off guard
Shocked.
here.
Yeah, I mean, grown women characters in anime don't normally have grown women voices.
Well, they do
so-
reveal she's still a high schooler or something, but she...
Yeah, whatever. Like,
It's that might as well be 30 in anime years.
That's table stakes at this point.
So yeah, it was a fun show. There was also some controversy because the first episode. Okay, so first of all, Wikipedia says there's both a novel and a light novel series of this. I don't know what that means.
I like how those are clearly delineated from each other, though, that they are
As they
definitely
should be.
different
But
things.
I'm trying to think of what amount of high literature would qualify being called a novel and not a light novel that would be related to this.
Yeah.
But there are apparently also fans of this novel who were outraged because the first episode chose to adapt something from book 2 when they're deep into the story.
Oh no.
And so they don't really give you any explanation or anything. They just kind of show you, hey, there's this cool girl in a bear suit kicking everybody's ass. Then, this is kind of interesting. And then in episode 2, they go back to the beginning and kind of explain what's going on.
I mean, that's one of those things where if I'm a fan of a work, wonky pacing or wonky adaptation can certainly get in the way of it. But I guess, since you're not a fan of the novels, I guess I have to ask, do you feel like that impacted your ability to enjoy the anime?
I thought it was actually a good choice because, we've kind of talked about this with other shows in the past, where we're kind of diving right into it and kind of showing you, okay, this is what the show is really about, and then you can kind of decide, is this going to be something I want to watch or something right away?
Right.
And it was a lot more interesting what they did in episode 1 than if they had just started with, hey, here's this girl that gets sucked into a video game world or whatever.
Right.
And then I would have just been I
guess that could work too. I think that case, that doesn't seem that bad of an idea.
It wasn't like it was super it's not like it's got a super deep confusing plot here.
I was going to say that anime kind of has a mixed legacy of starting shows in media res.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that this one worked it out, because it can be an effective narrative technique if you do it right.
And sometimes it becomes the defining reason why you should skip the first episode of an anime. Thanks, Gungrave.
Does Gungrave do that?
I think it's Gungrave. There's a famous
examples.
anime where the first episode literally spoils the ending of the series.
Oh, jeez.
And then episode 2 starts up chronologically at the beginning.
Oh yeah, you do get that sometimes where they'll start fighting the final boss or something like that. Or
I think my understanding is that the issue with the Gungrave anime is they literally showed the conclusion of the final boss fight in the first episode.
Yeah,
And then started the series.
That's perhaps a bit too far, but
the only way you can do that is by making that conclusion a fake out, right?
Right. Well, my understanding is that it was not a fake out, so
They
fans
just
were
straight up
pretty
did it,
fucking
yeah.
pissed.
Understandable.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a fun show. I put it on our sort of mid tier of recommendations on when I did our roundup. So if you like that kind of thing, it's a fun show.
Speaking of a thing that is kind of a mid tier recommendation.
What are you talking about mid tier? Everybody should watch this.
Yeah,
right?
I feel like that's damning with faint praise.
No,
All right,
okay, so the show we're talking about is...
Yeah, let's say the name first. Who wants
Mobage adaptation. Let's try here. Magatsu Warheist Zuerst. Zoist.
Yeah,
Jeez.
not too bad. Magatsu wa Zoist.
Apparently, this is a pre-existing mobile game, a gacha game of sorts, and this is its Rage of Bahamut in more ways than one.
Yeah, it's kind of from what the game's not out in the US yet, so I haven't tried it. I think it comes out this week actually, but so I will give that a
you'll
shot.
have to report back, please.
But
Mr.
from
Gotcha.
what we've seen of the game, it looks like it has absolutely nothing to do with the anime.
Yeah, the way I put it after watching the first couple of episodes is this feels like an adaptation of the backstory of the 1 and 2 star characters in that mobile game, because the most interesting thing about this show is how seemingly low stakes and grounded the conflict is so far. None of us have played the mobile game.
You say that, G, but the first thing we see is an entire city being destroyed in a gigantic explosion. So...
Well, Zig, but that's obviously backstory. The thing is that once we actually focus on our main characters,
Yeah, I'm just saying
Like-
that the stakes are not
No,
necessarily
the stakes
as low as all
can.
that.
I know the stakes can get higher. What I mean is that right now, like the stakes, the essential conflict right now is over basically a botched like smuggling bust, and
Right.
and again, like the reason why I'm saying this is because some of us have on our own time decided to look up this game because we're curious. Like, are these characters from the game? Like,
I don't believe they are.
and they aren't. Like, if you look up art, like. The reason why I say these are like what the characters in this anime are like the 1 and 2 star equivalents of the characters in the mobile game is because the mobile game characters look like mobile game characters. Like, I don't
Right.
even need to get into describing what that means. You already kind of have an image in your head of what that is. Whereas, I don't know. Yeah, the show itself, like, it's
So, yeah, we should point out, because I think when we said it's a mobile game, it does invoke certain visual images in people's heads, and if you haven't seen the anime, it doesn't. Most of the characters don't look like that, save for like the 1 5-star magic waifu who's in the.
Right.
Yeah, and she sticks out quite a bit. It has to be
Yeah,
said.
everybody else is just like normal, normal
like-
people in like normal clothes, and it's
Anime
it's like an
lady.
interesting.
Wait, who are you guys calling the 5-star? The mage lady?
If we're gonna compare her to the rest of
Okay,
the
I
cast,
would say I'm gonna
yeah.
be real, man. After seeing the art for the game, she looks like a 3-star at best.
But compared to that, she's got like a weird anime outfit
Yeah.
and
Oh, yes,
like
yes,
her
I
magic
know.
staff and everybody. Everyone else is like in pants and shirts. Like
I know,
normal
Right.
human beings.
And the way gacha scaling works, like she needs to have at least like 30 more tassels and pauldrons before.
Well, she's like the 3-star you get that can evolve to a 5-star.
Fair enough. Fair
But
enough.
Sure.
anyway, but also the setting is also like this kind of like vaguely like early 20th century type of.
It's
it's
pretty,
Valkyria Chronicles.
it's pretty close to being something which we don't see too much in anime, which is low fantasy. It feels very urbanized. There's cars and guns, and kind of there's an appealing bit of griminess to the setting,
Yeah.
which I'm.
but it's
very
not like
much into.
it's not like modern cars and guns. It's like I said, like more early 20th century
Yeah,
type of.
like if this thing has an aesthetic,
Technology.
it's Prohibition era America.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's why I said like I feel like as reductive of a comparison as it is to make, I do think the Valkyria Chronicles comparisons are not entirely unheard of. Like this is definitely going for that sort of like
It's like that
World
technology
War II
level.
/ interwar period of time, right? Like you got people with like bolt action rifles next to people with like magic staves, and like a dude with a katana.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, like I guess the reason why I think it's interesting and the reason why I still say that this is a medium tier recommendation is it's hard to tell where this show is going to go, and I don't think that any of the characters themselves are that interesting. Like
Right.
the premise and the conflict they're wrapped up in, like this is one of those few situations where this plot is actually being carried by the actual plot, not the characters. Like,
Right.
like you have the delivery
Yeah,
driver
great.
who's like very much worst day, all it takes is one bad day to, send your life careening out of control. You have your fucking cop ass goody two shoes, shonen protagonist on the side of the cops basically. Like you got your evil lieutenant, you got this mysterious, brown skinned waif who's like infiltrating the
I will say that
it's-
I was pleasantly surprised by the way they cast the lieutenant as happy, cheery, welcome to the club stuff, and then just have him shift into psychopath mode. I was quite taken in by that.
It works well because like it's a thing you can actually believe quite readily, right? Like the way military structures and police any authoritarian structure is, right? Is if
Nice
you're
to the I'm nice to the new recruits.
Yeah, right. Like nice to new recruits, puts up a good face, right? To remains affable and uses that to maintain an iron grip like sense of loyalty and camaraderie. No matter how monstrous the acts are being committed.
Right. So we talked about this being carried by the plot. The plot is basically this guy gets caught up in some. He gets some like stuff. He's like a delivery guy and gets some stuff planted on his truck and gets caught up
By
with
accident.
these like
Right, not even intentionally.
rebel resistance fighters fighting against the evil empire, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's basically so we've got like kind of two groups of like the resistance fighters on the run, and then the evil empire, and then like the one like you said the the kind of meathead shonen protagonist guy who's witnessing the atrocities of the Empire and questioning
I'm curious
his.
To see which quote unquote side ends up as the quote unquote main character. Like so far, it seems pretty. The two protagonists on opposite sides, and like twists of fate make them do battle.
Right.
But then like the eye catch has delivery driver guy, and I feel like the framing. Like, I'm probably just projecting, but I feel like the framing of the show so far in the first 2 episodes has been framing these smugglers as more morally in the right.
Right. I would definitely agree with that. It's just that everything, like, it's just there are too many things that set off the wrong alarm bells in me as, like, someone who has watched anime for a very long time. Like, like the protagonist is so obviously that kind of protagonist.
Anime hair.
Like, anime hair, like, he looks more distinct. Like, delivery driver guy looks like a side character.
Yeah, he does.
You know, like, he looks like a bit role.
I mean,
he's
that's
gotten
kind
a
of
ton of screen time.
That's kind of the genius, though, is that he does look so anonymous.
I totally agree with you, Zig, but that's the thing that worries me is, like...
Right.
Anime communicates its intentions so clearly with its character designs so often, right? Like, we've all had that joke about Fire Emblem of, like... Alright, I kill you, I kill you, I kill you. Oh, you're a pretty anime character. You're joining my team. I kill you, I kill you, I kill you, right? And
right, I'm almost surprised that, like, black dude wearing normal clothes
is still alive.
Yeah, did not die.
Right.
Or
Shoutouts to the black dude whipping out that katana out of nowhere.
I was actually shocked in episode 2 they didn't kill the cool mom.
Oh, yeah,
yeah. They saved her, yeah.
I thought for sure she was dead, because that's, like, easy way to show the Empire's evil or whatever.
Right. And the little girl with a terminal disease also survived, for now, at least.
For now.
But,
well, I mean, so that gets into the part that I think why we all agree this show is interesting, is that they've already done what I think is a magnificent job of communicating the stakes in the sense of how much they matter to these specific people, right? Like, you brought this up a couple of weeks ago, but, like, you thought that the most novel thing about this is, like, these smugglers are trying to smuggle something, right? And, like, they're making a big deal of it. And in any other anime, the thing being smuggled would be, like, a magical sword or, like, a little girl. And yet, in this anime, it's a fucking grenade launcher. Like,
right, they open the box and it's, like, guns.
Right, and not even, like, a bunch of grenade launchers.
Right. It's like they got caught, like, on their normal weapon smuggling run. It's not like they're trying to steal the MacGuffin that's going to destroy the Empire or something.
Yes, I agree with you, that's great, but, like, 5-star character is also smuggling some of that magic juice that potentially will blow up cities, so there definitely is something there, but you're right, they definitely do emphasise the fact that they are smuggling normal-ass weapons to begin with.
Right.
It's not like, if we can get this little girl with magical powers that can summon, whatever.
Right.
Right?
And then,
like,
and then it's that combined with, like, the stakes might not seem that big to us, but they've done a great job of communicating how much they matter to the people in this show. Like, it's a little bit of a cliche, but, like, the fact that the Resistance is willing to weaponize, like, a terminally ill girl in the name of their cause, like, even Avalanche doesn't do that in Final Fantasy VII. Like, this speaks to, like, how fucking deep into this these people are. Like, this is not as someone who studied a lot of, like, insurgencies, from my time, studying history, like, people have to be pushed pretty fucking hard to go that far, like, to even invest their children in these kind of life or death causes. And the fact that, like, the lieutenant guy is, like, willing to torture people over... Let me just put it this way. I feel like even America, even the United States of America in 2020 would not torture someone over a missing gun. Like, in fact, the United States of America probably wouldn't even care.
Well,
because, like...
I mean, that might be trying to find the rat out the group more so than just get the missing gun back or whatever.
Right, but just...
Yeah. No, and I mean, I guess to the whole low stakes thing, I mean, it is part of a bigger conflict here in that, apparently they are all being oppressed by this, evil empire where, that, so that's like sort of the bigger overarching conflict. I mean, that's a pretty high stakes thing, I would think. But,
True, fair enough.
But as far as like, they feel like a piece of that and not like the whole thing, right?
Right.
That's kind of the interesting angle that they're going for. So, but yeah, it's a real it's just, I guess, at the very base level, it's just refreshing to see them do some things that we don't see a lot of in anime. And they're doing it, I would say, at least competently. I mean, it's not always like the best looking show or whatever.
Right.
Also,
not
what the hell is
the
that
best
OP?
writing or whatever, but it gets the job done.
That HBO ass opening.
Yeah, what the hell is that HBO fucking AMC ass or whatever ass fucking
Yeah. They're trying to go for
Geometric
right.
shapes and
Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely trying to do something different, and I applaud them for that. You know?
Yeah, do we also want to bring up what the heck is with that Universal logo at the start?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going for like a cinematic type of feel or something.
Like, no,
to it.
no. I mean, is Universal funding this? Like, is Universal
Yeah, I
Japan
think
like a
so,
sponsor
Yeah,
or something?
they get their hands into these things sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's just
But yeah, so I think it's worth continuing to keep an eye on. I think there's only
Definitely.
been it was one of the later shows. So there's only been 2 episodes so far. So keep an eye on it. All right, another one we didn't get a chance to talk about, and it probably says a lot that I didn't even bother watching this. But Mr. Osomatsu season 3. I know you guys checked out at least the first episode, right?
yeah, G and I watched the first episode.
And they're done, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
They're out of jokes. Like it's like
There were
That's
a
really
couple-
depressing to hear. Actually.
There were a
Stop
couple
me if you-
decent jokes, but
okay. Yes, there are a couple of very funny jokes in that first episode, as always is with these kind of like shotgun blast bit style
Right.
shows, right? But like, stop me if you've heard this before. That first episode of season 3 is the Osomatsu brothers having yet another existential like conundrum about what does a comedy show do on its 3rd season? It's
Right.
already run out of jokes, and we're gonna make a joke about having run out of jokes, and
we're gonna do the old joke again about how nobody wants to watch these assholes. Let's have clean and normal versions of them instead.
See, that's especially disappointing to me because I thought both the original Too Hot for TV debut episode and the first episode of season 2 were some of the funniest things I've seen in quite a while.
And
so
that's
I was
Right.
hoping they
So,
would
like,
at
what
least
if they
come.
use that joke again?
Yeah, I was hoping
yeah,
they
but
would at
not
least come
nearly
out
as
of the.
well.
I was hoping they would at least come out of the gate strong. You know.
You would think
No.
you'd think like the next play then would just be like totally ignore the fact that it's season 3 or something, right? Like that would be the next.
You know what? Because none of you guys are gonna fucking bother. Like the one and only like really good joke that got me pretty fucking good is So at first they do the usual twist of, oh no, the Osomatsu brothers have been replaced by like their prettier male idol versions, right? Same old same. Kind of what you expect, right? Squeaky clean. But then they're like, but Osomatsu-san should be for everyone, and Osomatsu-san should be global. So they introduce Osomatsu Sisters, and then Osomatsu International, and it's like Osomatsu brothers, but like wearing like kind of culturally insensitive like costumes of other cultures. Like there's an Arab and a Russian and an Indian and a Chinese guy, and it did get me pretty good.
18
Just
sextuplets.
right, the 18 sextuplets now for every demographic and gender, which was pretty good. But unfortunately, that was basically there was that and the like Evangelion like what are they called again? The fucking... Who are those big pillar dudes called? The
Sele?
Yeah, the Sele slabs or whatever.
Yeah.
They do have a good bit with that, of, we are the production committee.
I did like the joke of the reason the real brothers get to stay is that the squeaky clean idols are found to have drugs in their pockets.
And they get immediately
Yep,
unpersoned.
they immediately get carted off, and
See, that's the kind of edge I want from an Osomatsu episode.
Yeah,
you know?
and again, like I said, I mean, like we just went over here, there are a couple of pretty solid jokes, but it's like 3 solid jokes in 22 minutes of like bad poop jokes. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not too good for a poop joke, but a bad poop joke that goes on for like 6 minutes.
Oh my god.
Like, you know, yeah,
that's-
just, I don't know, rest in peace, Osomatsu, I guess.
I'm so so disappointed because I absolutely loved the first season, and Yoichi Fujita is one of my favorite directors. I love anime comedies, and it's like I was just so tired of Osomatsu by the end of season 2. Like, I just had no desire to watch this, and it sounds like from what you guys are telling me, I still have no desire to resume.
I mean,
free Yoichi Fujita.
Yes, hashtag free Yoichi Fujita.
I mean, I think the thing is, for me at least, even right from the beginning of Osomatsu, is when it was funny, it was incredibly funny. But the thing we don't always remember about those first 2 seasons is that there was a lot of extremely middling stuff,
Oh, no, I think we knew that. I never even finished season 2.
No, me neither.
Yeah, I mean, I think our opinions may vary on that because I thought season 1 was great the whole way through. Season 2 was definitely up and down.
There were definitely a few bits in season 1 where I felt that they took the joke and ran it too long, if that makes sense.
It was definitely diminishing returns, I think, on their whole shtick, basically, where they I guess it's a weird thing with comedy where, like, once you open up the possibility of literally anything happening, then, like, nothing can shock you.
Yeah, and like,
I think that's ultimately what they run into is, like, well, you guys can do anything, so if you do anything, it's not, like, surprising or shocking or anything anymore at this point.
Like, as an addendum to that, I will say that my favourite parts of Osomatsu were the bits where they got very silly and not necessarily the kind of the more what's the word, but kind of the more low-key humour that was just kind of a bit more rooted in reality. I really enjoyed it when they went absolutely butt crazy, and that kind of thing by its nature tends to have a shorter shelf life because there's only so crazy you can get, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Osomatsu is like a great example of like why I think anime comedy, or hell, even comedies in general, kind of struggle past like 2 seasons unless they're willing to upend the status quo, because when nothing changes, like, the Osomatsu brothers are always going to be, garbo human beings who, like, just, like, loaf around all day, and if that never changes, and, like, there's only so much material there.
Is this the segue to mention the Kaguya-sama Season 3 getting announced this morning?
Hell June? Yeah. Talking about...
An anime comedy that has been willing to upend even just a little bit upend the status quo. And
I mean, fingers crossed, hopefully this isn't famous last words, but yes, definitely looking forward to maybe the one and only good Season 3 of an anime comedy, so...
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty rare to begin with. I feel like even in the days of anime getting, 3 or 4 seasons, getting that many for a comedy has always been a bit of a rarity. So, I guess you have to be a pretty huge success like Osomatsu, or I suppose Kaguya-sama seems like it's been pretty successful as well. So, yeah, looking forward to that because, like you said, that is a show that is willing to make progress. Like, the characters evolve and things change enough to keep things interesting. Whereas, that does not appear to be the case with Osomatsu. So,
no.
R.I.P. free Yoichi Fujita. Let's move on. All right, one last quick thing I want to mention, the Grand Blues anime, which is the wacky comedy spin-off of Grand Blue Fantasy, that did actually turn out to be a 3-minute short. I was a bit disappointed in that. I thought it was going to be a full-length thing.
Well, are the jokes good, at least?
The jokes are still pretty solid. They come right out the gate in the first episode by, like, bringing up the, like, obscure one-off special outfit you can only unlock by playing the April Fool's event that's only available, one day a year.
Is that the one where the, like, cute sidekick animal gets really, really buff?
Yes, and in this particular outfit, he turns into an axe that Lyria holds while she's climbing into a giant fish.
Sure.
So,
all right.
These are the kind of weird deep cuts that I wanted.
Yeah,
I'm all on board.
Like if you're a fan,
if you're into the game and whatnot, then this is for you. I'm just a little sad that it was only 3 minutes.
Well,
long.
It's hard to say, like, is this one of those cases of, like, they took a hard look and realized there can be such a thing as too much of a good thing. Like, I assume there's enough material in Grand Blue to, like, make a full-length Carnival Phantasm-style comedy show, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, this is specifically based on an ongoing gag manga. So
okay.
it's
These are not
the material is there. They have like thousands of strips to pull from.
This is not original. This is not an original anime comic.
If it wasn't a full episode, I think they could have done half episodes because the pacing's kind of almost. It's maybe not quite as fast as Pop Team Epic, but it is kind of like that with sort of quick hits of weird things happening. And for all intents and purposes, let's call Pop Team Epic a half episode length show.
I would agree generally with that take.
So I think in that maybe a half length would be good. But anyway, it's fun, but I'm a little disappointed on the length as well. All right, so that gets the leftovers out of the way there. Let's talk about some of the other shows that we mentioned in our first looks, and now we're following up on our 2 to 3 episode tests on some of these.
Yeah.
If we made it to episode 3, which I don't know if that happened with our first show on the list, but I did want to talk about the Wandering Witch debacle.
That was
debacle
episode 3, I want to say.
Yeah, it was episode 3 that was the problem.
Okay, so to recap, a lot of people were pretty high on this show. I didn't watch it personally, but just based on feedback from you guys and other people that I follow across the internet, pretty positive reaction to the first episode. And it was the third episode that things went apparently horribly wrong. I haven't looked up anything about this. I'm going to leave it to you guys to explain what happened.
Okay, do you guys mind if I take this one?
Go ahead.
So, there's 2 stories in this episode 3, and they're both kind of weird. The first one is perhaps a little bit odder, but it's the second one which really got people going. So the first one is she's flying through this field because her whole shtick is she's travelling, right? And she meets this lady who's giving out flowers, and the lady gives her flowers and says, "Can you take them to the nearest town?" And she takes them to the nearest town and is immediately set upon by the guards who, grab her and act suspicious towards her. And it turns out that these flowers are actually deadly poisonous, and they, people keep sending them to try and ruin the town, basically. And it turns out that one of the guards is in fact the brother of the girl who she met in the flower field. And so the next day she flies back to the flower field and she finds the girl has turned into like this horrible plant thing, and the brother is there and he's sort of slowly mutating into a plant as well. And it's just kind of weird and dark and kind of nihilistic,
Okay.
And then she just leaves, because she's like, these people are beyond help. And you can sort of understand it as an attempt to kind of like put a darker tinge onto this sort of idyllic wandering life. But it feels a little bit out of place and nothing really happens, which is perhaps the oddest part about it. But anyway, so that felt a little uncomfortable. But then we get to part 2, and in part 2 she runs into this guy who's out with a big glass jar, and it turns out he's capturing happiness. He's trying to bottle up all this happiness so he can take it to this girl he likes who is always sad. And he's like, you should come back and meet her, we'll have lunch and stuff. So main character Wandering Witch goes with him to his house, and it turns out that the girl he likes is a servant in the house. She is very upset and very downtrodden, and over the course of the episode it becomes pretty apparent that she is in fact a slave. And
great.
Dude's dad just straight up says, yeah, she came from a country in the Far East, I brought her back here and now she's slaves for us, And so, the witch is like, okay. And then, so they have, a frosty dinner together. And then, the next day, dude presents this bottle to her, and he opens it up, and it's full of lovely scenes, stuff like that, beautiful mountains and lovely rivers and stuff. And he's like, look, I took you all of these sights to make you happier. And the girl bursts into tears, of course, because, they're not sights that she can see. They're not sights that she can partake in, And
she can't leave the house because she's a slave.
yeah,
basically.
and like obviously the dude is completely confused because he's a clueless idiot, and
right.
And the real problem is the ending, which is where the witch goes, "Huh, that's kind of busted," and then she leaves.
So, I could definitely see why this would leave such a sour taste.
Yeah, that made me a little
mouth.
nauseous listening to that. So, yep.
So
I
was
say,
so
though-
angry. I was so angry I had to put down the computer and just step away for a good 10 minutes or so.
So, here's the thing I'm going to say, just is... I gotta be honest, the more you describe this, the more this actually just reminds me of the somewhat legendary early 2000s anime, Kino's Journey.
So, yes, I've heard the comparisons as well there.
Like... I don't know if Kino's Journey has aged super well. I definitely remember it, having a huge impact on me when I watched it. It was kind of that, like, Haibane Renmei adjacent, like, surreal realism style early 2000s anime, but the basic premise of it was kind of similar of, like, here is this, like, ambivalent traveler who is, like, for better or worse, like, very hands-off in her, very, like, what's that rule in Star Trek, whatever, like, very
Prime
hands-off.
directive.
The Prime
Yeah.
Directive.
Right, very prime directive approach to, like, these various, like, city-states she's visiting that often have, like, very strange and foreign rules and ideologies, Sometimes that's benign, like, people stay indoors and never leave their houses. Weird. Or to stuff very bad, right, like cannibalism. And the thing that was, like, kind of the resounding, like, tone of Kino's Journey is that it was very much meant to be an observant tone. Like, if people attacked her, if people, like, tried to endanger her or her friends, she would react, usually with highly lethal violence, but generally she kind of just let it all slide. She never tried to change these societies. And again, having not watched this show, like, I can definitely understand why this would, like, be so off-putting, but I am wondering, like...
I mean, is the
there are
implication that... Is the implication that the main character could have done something about it?
I mean, there is
that-
literally a point where the girl
Yeah.
knocks a jug off and it shatters on the floor, and the dad goes to beat her, and the witch points her wand at him, and it looks like she's about to zap him into oblivion, but she doesn't. She fixes the
okay.
jug instead.
Oh,
Right.
man.
I think that's a big...
And
Yeah.
also, like,
difference.
so let me offer a riposte, G, which is, up to now, this show has been, a very plucky, spirited, we're not talking about a character like Kino, who is quite apathetic and,
Right,
there
from
to
the start.
observe.
Right, they make it clear from
right.
the start in Kino's Journey that is the tone of that show, whereas it sounds like here, things started off much more whimsical.
Yes, absolutely. And the second thing is, I don't care if Kino's Journey was like that, because that's also morally unacceptable to me in that case.
Well.
I don't, and when I say this is possibly the worst episode of anime I've ever seen, I'm not being hyperbolic, because, it is such a failure on every possible level, on every level. Even if this were a dark, brooding, nihilistic show, what are we supposed to do? Are you honestly telling me that I can continue watching this show and have any interest or shred of empathy with the main character after seeing that?
I think,
it's just not
and-
possible. It's not possible to have any sort of good feelings towards the main character.
Yeah. And I think the big problem here is, like, this kind of thoroughly poisons the well, for better or worse, right? Because let's say, what's the name's character? She's Elaine? Is that her name?
Elena or something.
Elena.
Elena, yes.
So let's say Elena does do something heroic later, right? Like, let's say a couple more episodes down the line, another arc, she does do something genuinely heroic, saves a village, blah blah blah. Then all of a sudden, now you have to ask, well, why the fuck didn't she do anything about that slave girl? And then if she doesn't do any heroic stuff for the rest of the show, then that also doesn't leave a very good taste in your mouth either, does it?
Why are we
Like-
watching in that case?
Right.
Like, I guess maybe the message is sometimes, like, the real world is harsh, but I don't watch entertainment for that. you know.
At least not unless they make it clear from the start that that's what that show's going to be about.
But
Right.
again, this is not a situation this is not a situation where there is any moral ambiguity whatsoever. You know, there is absolutely zero room for debate on this topic. You know, and there has been no indication that in this world that slavery is an accepted institution or anything like that. And even if it was, again, our heroes are meant to be, you know, people that we empathise with and who stand up for the values that we as a liberal society believe in.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those tough things where it's like, again, I apologize to keep bringing up the comparisons, but I guess one of the caveats Kino's journey sort of had going for it is that she was a lone vagrant wanderer against, like, these, you know, potential entire societies, you know, city-states and nations.
Right, Kino's not going to be passing through and, like, overthrow the government.
Right, whereas, like, this thing with, like, this Wandering Witch show, it's like, it's hard to tell, right? Like, because here's the thing. I almost think you could pull off this story if you went through great pains to show that, like, Elena's intentions are good, but she is faced with, like, an insurmountable societal issue that she alone can't overcome. I mean, that requires nuance and time and episodes, and a very, very delicate approach that I don't think this show sounds like it has.
And episodes of build-up as well. And also, like, one thing the show has established is that witches in this world are highly respected and extremely powerful. So it's not just that she is an innocent bystander. She is a person with the power to make a material change. You know, she could have blown that dude to Kingdom Come and nobody would have been able to touch her for it, you know. And just, you know, I am just completely baffled as to why you would make this artistic decision, you know. And apparently it's from the original manga, so, you know.
Oh, well, you know, then that...
But, you know, just, you know, I cannot, you know, no matter if people come back and say, oh, the next episodes are like great all-time material, I'm sorry, it's done. You know, it's just done. There's nothing you can do to convince me to continue watching that show. It's just a total failure of storytelling.
Yeah, that's
well,
that's it. That's it.
Yeah, not too much more to say on that. So we'll just have to move on.
Yeah,
that's it's unfortunate that not only did that happen, but that it just like took a turn from something completely different.
Absolutely, you know, and there were many things to recommend the show, you know, but just this bizarre, you know, I'm not opposed to, you know, cutesy shows getting dark, and I'm not opposed to anime confronting serious issues, you know, but this isn't a confrontation so much as like a whistle-stop tour, you know. It is, you know, darkness without anything to say. It's just a complete abdication of any sort of responsibility in your storytelling.
Yeah.
Right. You're not actually doing anything with it. It just,
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, here's what I'm going to bring up real quick. Now, Ako Kagari might have an intelligence stat of 2, but she wouldn't stand for slavery. We know that because she joined a labor union.
Yes.
Yes. Good call on that one. But, all right. Let's move along to another show that... Are you guys done with this now?
Oh, yeah.
We're done.
Okay, so...
Yeah, we're done.
But Hypnosis Mike, you did watch up to episode 3?
4.
I think. 4? Oh, wow.
Or is there 4?
Right.
Or is it just 3?
We watched up to 4.
4, yeah, 4.
And how'd that go?
Poorly.
Boring.
Or not even poorly.
First of all, why did you watch 4 episodes of this? Is my first question.
I had to see more, man. Like I told, dude, like Jill, like the suicide vest gag in episode 2 was so fucking good that alone convinced me to watch at least one more episode, because like, if that was the kind of level of dumbassery this show was operating on, I was like half expect like, well, if this is where they're starting, then I half expect by the end of this show, like, the boys are gonna have to rap to stop like an ICBM loaded with subwoofers from, like, you know, hitting Japan or something, right? Like, that's like, that's the expected level of idiocy that this show is operating on, that I wanted to be there to see, but turns out that was kind of the best they had, because episodes 3 and 4, or how, I'll put it this way, episode 2 seemed to hint to me that maybe this show was more self-aware than it seemed. Like, that they knew this was silly and ridiculous and they were going to lean into it. And then 3 and 4 kind of just it just does it in a very straightforward manner. Like, it does it very unironically. And
back to doing the idle thing by the books.
yeah, very by the books. Like, just hot boys on adventures. One of the hot boys got framed for a murder. Time to solve the crime.
That's
Which,
a
again,
fun adventure.
Like, that sounds fun. I was like, oh man, the boys are gonna have to rap. I thought this was literally gonna end in like them being in court and like, you gotta rap to prove your innocence or something, but it did not. And then episode 4 is literally the plot of episode 1 of Ikebukuro West Park Gate. We gotta stop the drugs, because even though one of the hot boys is the leader of a Yakuza gang, as everybody knows, the Yakuza famously hate drugs. Definitely.
They're gonna work with the cops to stop the drugs.
Right. Yakuza famously known to work with the police. Actually. Anyway.
Well, yeah.
Another direction.
Yeah, now police working with the Yakuza, now that's believable.
But yeah, it's just... Oh, look, the rapping's never been good, and now even the, like, silly hot boy plot lines are not that entertaining, so...
What a waste.
It really has lost the last vestiges of anything interesting it had going for it.
Oh, what a waste.
Yeah, so,
That could have been such a fun show.
Right? Like, I remain convinced that, like, in the right hands and with the right execution, I genuinely believe Hypnosis Mic could have been, like, one of our favorites of this season. Just, like, on the back of its ridiculously, delightfully dumb premise. But, like many an anime with an interesting premise, it proceeded to do absolutely nothing with it. So,
well,
thanks,
that's another RIP for Hypnosis Mic then on that one as well. I wonder how many of these shows we're going to have left by the end of...
I'm legitimately concerned. Like, I'm even looking at our show notes now. Half of these will be gone by the next podcast.
Yeah, well... Maybe we'll finally get a chance to talk about Genshin Impact then.
Finally, our time to shine.
Anyway, let's not go there for now. Let's move along to Talentless Nana. I've watched all 4 episodes. Did any of you guys watch more of it beyond episode 1?
I haven't watched it.
I have meant to, but I haven't had the chance. It's been busy.
So just to recap real quick, episode 1 ends with kind of a big twist, and again, huge spoilers on this one. If you're interested at all, stop listening now and go to the next show. But it ended with the big twist where they reveal Nana is actually not just one of the other students, but she's actually been sent there to kill all the other students, and it ends with her
seemingly
murdering the guy who you thought was going to be the actual protagonist of the show. Just chucks him off a cliff. So episode 2. So I'm not gonna spoil too much. I'm just gonna kind of say that she continues to carry on her mission of knocking off some of the other students through episode 2 and kind of into 3. And in episode 3, they introduce a character who's gonna kind of be her foil, who's like basically onto her, and it becomes sort of like a cat and mouse type of game thing.
See, judging from the first episode, I thought that was going to be like broody white-haired guy. I thought he was going to be her foil. And you're telling me that's not how it goes?
Well, yes. That's how.
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
I wasn't meaning to hold back who it was per se, but it was.
But I mean, like he
steps up into that. He steps up into that role because he doesn't really do anything in the first 2 episodes.
It's fairly obvious from the credits that he's like her opposite.
Right. He's just kind of brooding in the background for the first 2 episodes, but in 3 is where he kind of steps up into that role of like her. I guess technically he's the good guy, but
her nemesis.
But yeah, because she's still like the main character, but she's also trying to murder everyone. But yeah, so they kind of start doing a little cat and mouse because he's actually smart enough to figure out that something is going on weird with this girl, and it's pretty good as far as like these types of like thriller type things where they're trying to solve, he's trying to pick up all the clues and she's trying to find creative ways to kill people without getting caught, and they do a pretty good job with all that. And I find it interesting that she's not like totally infallible. Like her plans don't always go the way she's expecting them to go, and then she has to like come up with contingency plans and stuff like that. So it's not just like she's the perfect killer that's just offing everybody. In fact, after episode 2, she hasn't successfully killed anybody. She's only taken out 2 people so far in 4 episodes.
I'm sorry. I'm curious about one thing, Jill. I haven't watched this at all, but so 2 people are dead in this cast, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, allegedly dead.
Are the rest of the cast concerned about this, or is it literally just the one brooding guy? Like
they are now.
Okay.
So it took like so that's part of the interesting part of the show is now she's got to figure out, well, I can't just keep knocking people off. They're going to figure out.
Right.
So there's this whole the whole premise of the show is like there's these superpowered kids that are being trained to fight the enemies of humanity. That's what they're called. They're supposed these monsters or something that like wiped out the earth or whatever. And so there's a rumor going around that, you know, one of the enemies of humanity has infiltrated the school.
I see.
And so she's trying to like play off of that to like basically take the scent off of her. Because otherwise, obviously, yes.
Is it actually her?
Kids start disappearing one by one.
Is she one of these so-called enemies of humanity?
Well, that's part of the the mystery.
Oh,
but
naturally.
yeah.
What am I saying?
So yeah, there's some I'm hesitant to just flat out say this show is good because I feel like it's
always kind of a gamble with this kind of show, right?
Yeah, like I feel like the actual like character writing and like directing and everything is all fairly average. It's not bad, but it's not great. But the actual like things happening, like the kind of cat and mouse games and like how she manages to off people, even though, you know, I forget if they reveal in episode 1 that she doesn't actually have any powers.
They do.
Well, the name of the show is Talentless Nana, right?
But
like
they do reveal that, yes.
Yeah, so the way, you know, kind of how she's figuring out how to manage all this without having powers and everybody else is like super powered is pretty interesting, and like just seeing like what kind of clever little twists they're gonna come up with next has been interesting to watch. But like the actual execution of it's fine, but it's not like blowing me away with it. So like I'm kind of hesitant to just say, wow, this show is great or whatever. But I think it's worth watching. I mean, it's fun just trying to guess what crazy thing they're gonna do next. And it's definitely a different type of show than, you know, your typical school show.
Yeah, I mean, I think with any sort of mystery come thriller show, a lot of it depends on the resolution, right? Whether they can turn this mystery into a satisfying climax, you know. But
right.
I'm encouraged to hear that it's still keeping your attention and that they haven't fumbled the ball, so to speak.
Yeah, I think if it had just turned to, okay, this is how she's going to kill this student this week, you know, 1 student per episode formula
Murder of
or
the
something,
Week show,
then I would have been a lot less interested in that happening, and I'm kind of glad they have not gone that way, at least in the last couple of episodes.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that, you know, somebody has a plan and it goes off without a hitch is not good drama, right? You want some challenge, you want some difficulty in there to overcome.
Yeah. I'll just leave as the teaser. In episode 2, she managed to kill somebody with time travel, which was pretty interesting.
Sure. I mean,
right.
it's an academy full of superpowered people, so there's going to be some
kill him in the past, so he dies right now. I don't know.
Sure.
No.
Oh,
yeah,
fine.
well, yeah. I'll leave that as the teaser.
Fine.
You'd have to watch it to see what actually happens, but
well,
yeah.
Depending on how poorly the rest of the season goes, maybe I'll have to start picking that up. So
it's pretty decent. It's fun to watch.
Cool. Like I said, I'm glad to hear that they built off a good start.
Yeah. Well, speaking of not building off of a good start, let's talk about Sleepy Princess and the
Are
Demon
you going to
Castle.
stick with this one,
So
Jill?
I think the big worry, like we identified this in the First Look podcast, but the big fear here was you've only got one joke. How far can you take it? And
Yes.
it sounds like the answer is not far enough.
Yes. So I don't know. I've watched through the first 3 episodes. I'll probably keep watching it. It's kind of fun and silly, like type of thing that I like.
By the way, we're talking
But-
about Sleepy Princess and the Demon Castle.
Oh, did I not see? I
You
thought I
did
said
not
the.
say.
No, he did. He
I thought
did
I
say
said the
it.
title.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh shit, my bad.
Okay.
I'm the one not paying attention.
So yeah, they've pulled out like. There's still like a couple decent jokes, but the premise is still exactly the same. Of, okay, for this segment, the princess wants to collect cloth for her bed sheets, so I guess I'm gonna have to go kill some magical creature in the castle to get bed sheets. Okay, well, now I want to wake up to the sun rising, but I'm off in the demon kingdom where there's no sun. Let me go find this mythical sword that emits glowing light, and I'm gonna make that my fake sunlight. And it's just like
I don't know. That's
like they're pretty
enough.
they're fun little jokes, but like it doesn't feel like it's enough to carry.
This is a full length show.
Man.
Yes, it is a full length
All right.
show.
I mean, these seems like jokes that would work for like a short, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. But it's always like kind of the same concept of she breaks out all of like the idiot demon guards that are all like surprisingly nice, like none of them actually think to actually like apprehend her and throw her back in her cell or anything. They're just like, wait, what is she doing? And so they'll watch her do some crazy thing, like thinking, oh no, she's gonna steal the sword and give it to the hero so that she can escape the castle. And instead she just drags it back to her
Right,
room
yeah.
and sticks it in the window. But it's that same joke over and over and over again, and I don't know if they're really gonna go anywhere else. They've kind of put the Demon King guys showed up a bit more, like they're
is he a
including
hot
him
anime
more.
boy?
Yeah, kinda. Well, everyone looks like they're from like Dragon Quest or something.
Right.
Oh sure.
But and he's like this harmless cinnamon roll, of course.
Of course.
And, I just don't. I don't see them really expanding on the jokes enough, so I don't know if I'll keep watching it or not. But it's kind of disappointing. I would have liked, because I did like the first episode, and this is Dogakobo as far as animation and execution. It looks fantastic and everything, and yeah, I'm just kind of already bored with it though, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
well, we'll put that one aside for now. Maybe I'll watch it, maybe I won't, but we'll see. And let's move on to Moriarty the Patriot. I have not watched past episode 1 on here, so
I have
don't
not
know,
watched
Zig, if
any
you
of
wanna-
this.
There's only been like episode 3 came out today, so we haven't watched it yet. But I've seen episode 2.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I know you liked the first
I did,
episode,
yes.
so how was episode 2?
It's interesting. Episode 2 is mostly in flashback, and it's kind of an origins episode, and they're taking it in a sort of interesting direction, which I'm not sure how I feel about. So basically, mild spoilers, there's nothing too crazy here, but basically it's revealed that Moriarty and his younger brother, the weird glasses butler dude, they weren't born into nobility. They were adopted by a noble family, but they were originally street kids in a ragged school and stuff like that, Whereas their elder brother, who doesn't look like them, he has brown hair, was born into nobility. And it's odd, they seem to be kind of trying to position this as kind of a class warfare thing. So, they're trying to frame Moriarty as heroic by suggesting that he's rising up from the underclasses to, tear down the nobility of the British Empire and stuff like that. Which, look, I'm all for that, okay? But but it
Sign me up.
Rich.
But it's a very odd angle to be taking because, I guess it's a way to make Moriarty look more traditionally heroic, but it seems to be an added layer of complication which you don't necessarily need in this story. So I'm interested to see where they go with it. There's this second episode is mostly, like I said, a lot of flashbacks to when they were kids. There's a bit of character building stuff. They established that Moriarty was always brilliant. As a child, he was cleverer than adults and stuff like that. And also he was always kind of a bastard. It's okay. It's solid, but I don't think like, part of the first episode that I appreciated was kind of like the darker tone, the violence, and all that kind of thing. And obviously, there's not much of that in that second episode. So it's not the direction that I thought they would be taking, but we'll see what they can make of it.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, did anybody get violently murdered in episode 2?
I mean, there's the implication that to get adopted, they burn down the house, right? Like,
so, like, the kind of the plot around the adoption thing is that, like, the eldest brother, is it Alfred?
I forget, to be honest.
I think it's Alfred. So the one who's actually truly born to the nobility, he's the only good one in his family. His dad and mum are, like, snooty nobles, and his little brother, who is actually called William, is kind of a shitty, like, spoiled rich kid. And so the implication seems to be that they adopted Moriarty and his younger brother just as, like, a thing because they were trying to keep up with the Joneses or something like that,
Look how good we are sharing our wealth with the under...
And so the very strong implication at the end of the first episode is that they burnt down the house, killing the mother, father, and younger brother, and allowing Moriarty to take the younger brother's identity, which is why he's William James Moriarty and not just James Moriarty as he is in the Sherlock Holmes novels. And so, like, that's pretty messed up, and I'm into that. Also, important fact, the opening credits showed Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, and they are both hot boys. So,
of course,
how long until they pull out microphones, start rapping?
See, that's a crossover I could get behind. But I definitely think that that they've got a lot of space to explore. It just strikes me as very odd about the class system, like making it into a class warfare thing, because, like, the honest truth is that, like, everybody who was anybody in like British writing and British novelization was a member of the upper class at the time, and so positioning Moriarty as kind of like a champion of the downtrodden is... It's
and
a
I mean,
choice.
He seemed like he was doing pretty well for himself when I was...
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing, he has infiltrated the ranks of the nobility, that's right. The whole point. So, I don't know, like, I see why they're doing it, because, again, it puts him in a more traditionally heroic role, but I'm not, doing,
I mean, how else do you make him palatable for being, I'm a super genius who kills people for the greater good, man.
I mean, like, you don't necessarily have to make him palatable, but I mean, like, the problem, like, class warfare is a difficult thing to write about, right? And, especially in, the very heightened stakes of the 19th century Victorian Britain and all that kind of thing, So my worry is that they may be using a sledgehammer to crack a nut here, but we'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that front, at least.
Sure.
But,
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm all for using that as some kind of, framework for the theme of the show or something like that, if they can pull it off. But, like you said, that's not something you just casually throw into your show to try to make it more
tricky.
interesting.
I will say that the show continues to look lovely, and the voice work is excellent. So on a technical front, it's holding up well. But you'd expect that from production IG, really. Yeah.
Well, I feel like they can be hit or miss, but
I think
when they're on, they're on.
They seem to be
sure.
on here, and as a Brit and a historian, I appreciate the depiction of Victorian London. I think it's not a setting we see too often in anime, and it's nicely done, But I think we'll need a few more episodes to really get a handle on where this one is going long term.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep watching. Put it that way.
We'll check back in on that then. Let's move along to Adachi and Shimamura.
Yep.
Quick recap. I personally loved the first episode, minus the extremely horny director.
What about the weird astronaut, Jel?
Yeah, sure. I'm into that.
What if there was way more of the weird astronaut all over the show, Jel?
Okay, well, first let's. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like they did dial down the horniness in episode 2 and 3.
A little. It's definitely still
bit.
there.
Yeah, because episode 1 I felt like had very like explicitly let's shove the camera up the girl's skirt shots, and now this is more let's make long loving camera pans on their thighs type of things. But that's kind of splitting hairs, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I did feel like it was toned down a little bit.
There's still enough there to make me feel not entirely comfortable about it, but they have dialed it down a notch.
Right. But barring that, and I will leave this up to I will say that this is my opinion on it, but I love everything else as far as beyond that. They do in episode 2 and 3 shift a little bit of the focus direct off of less directly the girls' relationship and the weird little astronaut that showed up in earlier that is claiming to be an alien or whatever. And you guys watched episode 3,
right?
Yes,
we've seen both episodes.
She just like straight up turns into the girl from
Denpo
in episode
was like,
3.
Is that literally just the girl from Denpo?
No, it's not.
But she sure looks like it.
Or at least not yet. But it's basically the same character.
What I'll say is I think I enjoyed episode 2 more than episode 3, and I think I enjoyed episode 2 because it's way more focused on the relationship between Adachi and Shimamura, and
yes.
like it's a more traditional kind of like tentative anime romance, which we've seen 1,000 times, but it's still quite novel when they do it like a lesbian romance there.
Right.
And
yes, episode 2 they kind of reveal that Adachi is
crushing hard.
What I believe the kids would call a disaster lesbian.
Is that what the kids say?
Yeah, it's pretty great. And yeah, I agree. I probably liked 2 better than 3. 3 they could like 3. It's interesting because I can see, like, I understand the desire to want to kind of break up the monotony of just 2 girls talking to each other.
And
the problem is, I very rarely see good examples of that.
Yeah,
happening.
like I feel like if you described the show to me, I would be all about like the weird astronaut interludes, but actually they might be my least favorite part of the show because they just kind of feel a little wacky for wacky's sake at this point.
Yeah, I think as like a weird interlude to sort of like give the girls something to talk about or whatever is fine, but she kind of hijacks the entirety of episode 3.
Yeah,
right?
very much so. And it's because, I think it's because the character writing between the 2 main characters is actually surprisingly good, and I want to see more of them, finding their way with each other, that it kind of feels like Astronaut is kind of cut and pasted in from an entirely different genre of show.
Right. And again, I think that's fine as like a catalyst, but when it takes over the entire episode and like the focus is on this weird little girl that they're hanging out with that takes us away from the meat of the show, that's kind of not the direction I want to see. But I mean, I'm kind of saying that in comparison to episode 2. I really didn't think it was that bad.
No, it was.
I still enjoyed the episode.
It was totally tolerable. I'm just
as a whole.
I just think that the strength of that show is not necessarily in the weird astronaut interludes, especially now she's just been revealed to be another Moe girl. I would much rather we have a focus on an actual relationship rather than just, random space pixie.
Right. I just now realized as I was looking it up that the ridiculous localized title for Denpa Onna, which is the same author as this.
It was Electric Girl.
Ground Control to Psycho-Electric Girl. How's that for a...
It's not terrible, I guess.
I mean, that's the kind of title that would draw me in, put it that way.
Yeah, but all right. Yeah, so if they can keep sticking more to the development of the relationship between the 2 girls and less of the... Oh, I guess she's not an astronaut anymore, the little blue-haired girl. Or even their friends. Like, her friends, the glasses girl and the other girl.
They're clearly setting them up to be the beta couple.
Yeah, I'm not really wild about that. It kind of reminds me, like, again, this does happen a lot in these shows because I feel like the author feels like they can't just fill every minute with just 2 characters, so they have let's throw out as an example with the Takagi-san, where you had the side stories with the other 3 girls in the class that nobody cared about.
I kind of defend those a little bit, though, because at least they're something different, whereas the segment we had on Glasses Girl and Normal Girl just kind of felt like a very mild rehash of the Adachi and Shimomura segments, you know. Add to that like Glasses Girl and Normal Girl have basically no characterization, and it's just kind of dull.
What do you mean? She's got glasses and the big boobs.
Yes.
Also, and this other girl, she rubs the boobs.
Yes.
That's plenty of characterization, if you ask me.
Characterization. Well, my overall point being that, you know, we see in other shows where there's that need to pad out time with other things, and it's like I get the feeling of that, like, you feel like you have to do that.
I mean, I think
it rarely works out.
I think you can do that trope well, though. Like, if you look at Toradora, I think that's a good example.
Didn't like that show either.
Yeah, well, you know, you're a miser, Iro, but I think that was a good example of where the B plot successfully complemented the A plot.
Right. Well, they were kind of more. I think that was a little more integrated.
Yeah, I mean, calling them the A and B plot is a little unfair, but you get where I'm coming from.
They were all pretty intertwined still to a certain degree, but yeah, no, I get you. So yeah, I mean, I'm still very much enjoying it, though. Hopefully, they can keep the level of quality up for the rest of the run. Which is probably more I can say for our next show.
I'm surprised this is even on the list.
I did not even watch episode 2.
Neither did I.
So we're talking about Taiso Samurai or the Gymnastic Samurai.
Speaking of badly localized titles,
I think it's literal.
Yeah,
translation.
And it's bad.
Yeah, I agree. But anyway, I did so. We talked about this in the first. I don't think any of us were wild about this episode, but I felt like it was good enough to me personally that I was like, all right, I'll give it another episode or two just to confirm that what I was thinking is correct, and I was correct.
So it's bad.
I'll start with my petty thing
all right,
first,
all right.
before I get to the real main problem I have with it. Everyone in this show is an idiot, especially the main character.
Yep.
He doesn't get any better. His entire dialogue consists of, huh, what,
one of those types of characters.
And if he does talk, it's then a question. So, like in episode 3, his trainer is asking him, how's your pain level doing? Because he's injured, right? And he's like, my pain level? And I'm like, yes, your pain level. Just answer the question.
He talks like Solid Snake. Okay.
Yes, it's like, it is kind of like Solid Snake now that you mention it, where every question is answered with a question like he has no idea what's going on at any point in the show whatsoever.
I mean, isn't this dude supposed to be a veteran gymnast? Like,
yes, yeah, he's supposed to be. Yes, he's a grown ass man, veteran gymnast.
I mean, he's
like
literally
he should
a
have
father,
some knowledge
so...
of what's going on in the world.
Just out of interest, do you think that this is the translation, or is it just the original intent is there as well?
No, that's like he's not saying words half the time.
Okay.
Like you can hear it on the screen.
Gotcha.
He's going what? And then if he and then he answers questions with questions because he just has no idea. So like he's a total idiot. Everyone else in the show is also an idiot. Like the ninja guy who's just like, I'm a ninja.
Have they explained what that
to
dude's
everything.
deal is yet?
He's done literally nothing else except say I'm a ninja and also encourage the main guy to get back into
nobody
gymnastics,
is like ask this guy what the fuck his deal is.
No, nobody seems to know or care. He's still living with them and hanging out at their gym and everything.
Right. How's the grandma?
She has not shown up I think maybe one time in the for like 2 seconds. And that kind of leads to my real actual like big problem. Like I could see people looking past that if other things in the show were good. But my big problem with the thing is like just thematically they kind of well established between the first episode and like half of the second episode that he should quit gymnastics.
So they're still leaning on that.
like specifically, and not just because he can't do it, because you can do the old, well, I'm going to overcome the whatever thing, but specifically because it's better for his daughter and for his family life to quit gymnastics.
Right.
And he even has an epiphany in episode 2 where he's talking to at the altar of his dead wife, and he's like, man, I've been a terrible father, and he's like at peace with finally quitting and everything, and he's like, I'm gonna take care of my daughter and everything. And like had that been the direction the show goes, where he's taking care of his daughter and maybe he like picks up these young kids, because there's another kid that gets introduced in episode 3 and like becomes their coach or something that would have been more interesting, because I feel like it's a more interesting story of like an adult making progress in their life, as opposed to now
an adult pining for 15 years ago or like...
Right, an adult hanging on to their last vestige of youth or whatever, which is a much less interesting story to me. And so he has this like epiphany, and it's not until like he gets to his press conference where he's going to announce his retirement, just like at the last second he thinks about it and he's like, yeah, I don't want to do this. And then it's back on
episode 1, right?
And like anybody who's going to hold him accountable, like his coach like kicks him out. He's like, I'm not going to train you anymore. And then he just like begs him, please do it. And he's like, all right, fine. Yes, I'll do it. And I'm like, come on. Just and now they're setting it up as like this big, one last run or whatever. And it just like totally dismantled all the like thematic buildup that they built in the first episode and a half.
Question: Is this meant to be a serious drama? Like, is this meant to be being played as a sort of semi-serious character story?
Yes.
Because everybody here sounds like they're acting like no human being would actually act.
Yes, it is supposed to be like it's lighthearted, but it's supposed to be like a character drama type of thing.
Lighthearted is fine, but that doesn't mean that your characters can do whatever and like act wildly out of character.
To do that, you have to have people that act like human beings, right? And yeah, it just, I don't know, man. They had that one last opportunity to bail the show out for me, and they just went the other direction. Even just watching episode 3. So like episode 3, they introduce the other hotshot up and coming kid. This is where it starts to turn into Yuri on Ice, because he's basically the younger Yuri guy from Yuri on Ice, and he's like, you should quit, old man. I'm going to destroy you, all that. But so, I'm pretty sure they're going to end up training together or whatever. And yeah, and of course, I'll throw in one last thing. They had to bring in a stereotypical predatory gay character.
Oh, good.
Oh, fantastic.
Love it when my anime does that.
Yeah, so they threw one of those in who is an acupuncturist and magically heals his shoulder problems so that he can continue on.
Wait, really?
Yeah, no, I'm not joking at all.
That's it? That solves his shoulder?
Yeah, I mean, he's still got to like rehab a bit and stuff, but
fine.
like
I was going to say, like, I feel like in these types of sports stories, the injury is usually like the main source of drama for the whole show, so
right. No, but by the end of episode 3, he's absolutely fine.
Oh my god,
Jesus Christ!
And I'm like, anything like all the like potentially good angles that you had on this, you've just totally ignored all of them. And
what is this show going for?
I feel like the whole point of having an older protagonist is, one of the angles you can take is, how long can his body hold out? How can he battle against aging and fatigue and all that.
And in gymnastics, the answer is not very long.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, how old is dude meant to be?
I think he's supposed to either be like his late 20s or early 30s.
So he's ancient by gymnastic standards.
Yeah, ancient by gymnastic standards. Like, I think the oldest placing medalist in men's gymnastics is like 35 or something. Yeah. So.
Right, but that's like total exception to the rule.
Yeah,
like usually done by like 24.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
like
male gymnasts generally aren't done as early as female gymnasts are, but it's still not a long-term career. Put it that way.
No.
Right.
You got to get your sponsorship deals in quick while you're still young.
Right. So it's disappointing again. They could have done something with this, and they're just for his dialogue alone, it started turning into nails on chalkboard for me. So I can't watch any more of this. But
well, great.
I tried.
Well, that's a shame, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So I saved dessert for last here.
I'm a little annoyed you say this for last because I've been on pins and needles about my internet connection this whole time, Gel.
Well, you've lasted this long. Let's hope hope it holds out.
The one show that we've all enjoyed so far.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Akudama Drive.
I want to start by saying that the idea of a cargo cult forming around a bullet train is inspired and one of my favorite things.
Oh, it's so fucking good. There's
so many good things in this show.
Like, oh my god, I am like all in on the world building now. Like, even just like the fucking backstory of yes, the Great Kanto Kanzai War.
Yes.
Or whatever, that has now led to like Kanzai worshipping Kanto as like the fucking Holy Land.
I mean, I'm always a sucker for fictions that are kind of like, the elites built this privileged, capsule away from like the dregs of society, and now the dregs are going to come up and overthrow them.
It's so good.
I'm a real sucker for that.
The train station is a fucking castle temple.
Yeah.
Right,
while also being filled with like the latest high technology and everything as well.
This like highly polished pavilion of the worship, and here are these ticket machines off to the side.
Yeah.
So just on like a high level, I really love that this did not turn into like a death game battle royale.
I'm just happy that did.
A group of criminals doing a heist type of thing.
This is perfect. Like, honestly, like this is exactly like so far. This is exactly what I was hoping the show was going to be. Like, and maybe this is because I'm a Shadowrun fan, but like this is definitely building up into the sort of like party-based heist like adventure that I think is the best possible format to let all of these characters shine.
I've got to say that in terms of characters, like the real standout to me is the relationship between who's the guy who's supposedly doing 500 billion years?
Hoodlum
and Brawler?
Hoodlum and Brawler, like the weird kind of like just the total acceptance by Brawler that this nobody is a super badass, and the way the dude just
like the fact that Brawler has never once even tried to test this claim, he just accepts it wholeheartedly.
Damn, bro, it's badass.
Like it,
it's just like
it's weirdly sweet in a way how they have this kind of like bro-y thing going.
Yeah, like they're kind of they're kind of obviously the joke characters, but it actually works well to bring the best out of both of them as characters, like, because like, okay, good, it's like everybody here, like, it does one of the best things about an ensemble cast like this so far that I think is that now the thing I'm legitimately looking forward to is like, what are going to be the fun combination of characters in this like show, because
what are you going to do when Swindler has to hang out with like Doctor and Brawler,
right? Yeah, because it's like because like the thing they made clear with episode 3 is, the format of the show is going to be like every episode is basically going to be another like aspect of the heist, and there's going to be another complication, another obstacle to be surpassed, right? And like inevitably it will require like a highly specific collection of like skill sets that the characters have, and that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun, and it helps that like all the characters so far are like, I mean, you know what? They're like genre pastiches, but like they're likable.
I feel like the moment I knew we were safe was the bit where Doctor gets her head cut off and then is completely fine with like only a throwaway explanation at the end.
Right. Nobody really like they ask, but they don't really give an explanation.
I'm a doctor.
She's like, I can fix myself. I'm a doctor. Come on.
I think for me, it was in episode 2 is when they introduced the like
the super
executioner super cops, and they also get a stylized like intro.
I'd like to say that fight
kanji for execution, plastered everywhere.
That fight scene is also really good. Like it's a really
solid,
fast,
really good,
hard cutting fight that's really, really nicely done.
Yeah, and it does a good job of like, even though the super cops are outnumbered, like 2 to 5, 2 to 7, whatever, like
they're still kicking everybody's ass.
Right, like they do a good. I mean, again, maybe it's because for me the premier heist films are the Fast and Furious movies, but like it kind of does the thing of like introducing, The Rock or a Jason Statham of like, these are just like two dudes, but like they are beating the fuck out of everyone else.
I mean,
and so like it doesn't really feel like they're at a disadvantage.
It remembers that the best way to make your characters look cool is to make the dudes they're fighting also look extremely cool. So like your characters are even bigger badasses for having like gotten away with it.
Totally. Also, like, I mean, kind of an obvious in hindsight, but like, I really love the beam cheat
Yeah,
or whatever
yeah.
that they
It's
busted out. I was like, that's good.
There's just
Aesthetically, really great visual flair that show has. Like, I've really fallen in love with the set
there's
design.
just a confidence to it, you know. It has swagger.
Yeah.
It knows what it wants to be, you know. It doesn't it concentrates all of its resources into doing the things it wants to do, and in a sense it's actually a very disciplined show in that regard. The plot is tight, you know, the dialogue is excellent, it's laser focused on achieving a certain aim, and it gets there, and it does it with oodles of style.
There's no
fat
excess parts.
Like they trimmed it to the bone.
There's no everything, but and yet it still feels so like
expansive.
Like the visual style and everything is so like everything's so detailed, and like the whole like cyberpunk look that's on everything.
And, it
has a great.
I had one specific example for like that just came to mind. When is it Cutthroat?
The
knife
when
guy?
he's throwing the knife guy when he's throwing the knives through.
We also
electric
noticed
wall.
This. Yes.
Every single knife was different.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like
what show is going to do that?
That would be such an easy corner to cut, you know.
Right.
So I'm gonna call it. They have hinted that there might be a mole who's secretly executioner, and I'm gonna say it's what's on tape. I think it's Cutthroat.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
I think it might be the cat.
I don't.
Because like what better way to be a mole than to be the mastermind, right?
Here's another. Is this all just entrapment?
I mean, like, there's clearly something weird going on with like the Kanto Osaka relationship, right? So, like, is this like a secret plan to like inject these people into the perfect paradise and bring it down from within, or something like that? Like, that's a possibility.
I think there's a lot of potential angles the show could take. I mean, again, I'm not familiar with his works, but you know, everybody kind of knows, for better or worse, you know, the infamy of Danganronpa, right? So, like, it is definitely, like, I think this show has done a good job of setting itself up for having a lot of twists, right? Like, this could go multiple ways, and I don't think any of us would be, like, necessarily caught off guard. We would just be like, okay, yeah, you could do that. Like,
I mean, how high are the odds that Swindler is actually an
Pretty
Akudama?
high.
right, like, that's the thing. Like, that's one of the very first theories fans came up with, is, like, oh, Swindler is probably more in on this than she's letting on, because...
But I think that speaks to the aesthetic of the show as a whole, in the sense that it's not necessarily innovative, but it is so good at doing the things it does that you don't really mind, because the joy is in seeing how they will get there, rather than where they're going, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Right. I think with Swindler, like, it would have to be something more ridiculous than just... she's fooling everybody, because we've seen her like inner monologue where she's still like questioning things, right? So like,
I'll just say that here, I'm not sure I necessarily believe this, but one of the most common fan theories from people who have played the Danganronpa games is that...
Is this going to be split personality?
swindled herself.
The main theory is that she gave herself amnesia.
Right, sure.
So, like, the idea is,
that makes sense.
Very,
you know, she cut off the
like,
arm and sewed it on, and then used hypnosis and nanomachines.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a very. I've played Danganronpa and think it will do the same twist.
Right, like basically, she like she's the original mastermind, but then gave herself amnesia to give herself a truly like objective take on the case, and like maybe the cat was like a drone or like some sort of AI given explicit orders from her before she gave herself amnesia.
Right. I kind of hope it doesn't, but I'm
just saying that's one of the prevalent fan theories. I would
probably be fine with it, but I kind of hope it doesn't go that way. We'll see. But
what happens if she's actually secretly like 70 years old because she didn't time travel? She just
yeah, but I think because they've opened up this whole like world of possibility here, and you don't really know what what they're gonna like you know they're gonna like we knew they were gonna succeed with the heist, but like you don't know how they're gonna get there or like what's gonna happen.
To return,
you know, we don't know when the hot cops aren't gonna bust through the wall with their lightsabers again. Like, you know, it's.
I mean, to return to the point I started on, you know, what I'm impressed by is how well they've built the world out and how much that makes me interested in things beyond just like the basic heist. Because, again, you know, by establishing this weird world of haves and have-nots and like this holy bullet train and all that kind of stuff, you know, it makes me interested in like what they're going to say to use this weird fucked up society, what they're going to say about it and what they're going to do with it.
No,
Right.
I totally agree. Like, I think it's a weird situation of, like, yeah, like, for, as, like, you know, as much as we can say, this show's so dumb, like, what a, you know, fun, dumb show, like...
It's kind of not, though.
I'm legit interested in, like, the world building, like, the lore, quote-unquote, like, I would say that, like, it's not really comparable, but, like, in many ways, the show kind of gives me the same vibes as Double Decker.
Sure. Okay.
In the sense of like, this is a dumb show written by smart people, or at least it feels that way. Like,
I mean, in a very similar vein, you know, Babuki Buranki was the thing I cited.
Sure, like tonally it's ridiculous. Tonally it's a little simple, but like it's clearly like being handled by people who have a very like strong, confident grasp on the story they're trying to tell.
It's not like they just stumbled into this. Like, it's really tight execution.
Yeah.
Like, this is what they intended.
You have to be very smart to be this good at being stupid.
Right. Like, this was calculated dumbassery.
Right. Which is the best kind. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, shout-outs to the fucking puppet segment.
Edutainment. TV.
Edutainment.
Oh, yeah.
Here's how we give our
let's learn
exposition with their crappy edutainment.
The great Kanto Kansai War of Long Past or whatever.
That's almost as good as the Blood Blockade Battlefront. Some of their explanations,
thing.
Like the ketchup.
That really was
something like that.
Yeah, it's very good.
Go watch that show. If you're listening and don't know what we're talking about, go watch Blood Blockade.
How's that show not got into season 3 yet?
I know, right?
#free
Matsumoto.
Right. What is
whatever? She's been making mad bang doing Pokemon videos. Yeah.
That's fine, but fuck that. I want Blood Blockade Battlefront back, man.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I don't really even have anything bad to say about Akudama Drive.
No,
like, maybe it's not like the highest bar of like the deepest, like most artistic, whatever. But
I'm having fun.
But it's not trying to be like it's doing exactly what it's setting out to do. And it's a lot of fun.
In its way, it is. You know, they are doing good writing and good characterization. You know, I mean,
totally
right within the framework of the show
within
that
the framework of this
doing,
action heist show. You know, I think the writing is sharp. I think the characters are interesting, and they've done a good job of handling such a large cast and giving everyone little moments to shine. You know, and I think overall, again, you know, the writing is good. It's a stupid show, but the writing is good.
Totally. Like, I legitimately believe that if the show can keep up this pace, like, we will all genuinely care about these characters by the end of this show. Like, despite the fact that they are these absurd cyberpunk, like, pastiche archetypes, like, I think, assuming, again, fingers crossed, that it can maintain this level of quality, we will be genuinely invested in these characters by the end.
Check the space in 2 weeks where the show has completely collapsed in on itself.
Oh, yeah, come back 2 weeks from now when they have the arc where they let slavery happen. God.
Well, let's
let's
enjoy this moment while we have it.
These guys have the advantage of being terrible people to start with, so...
Fair enough.
Yeah, man,
fair
dude's
enough.
got a sentence of 500 million years.
500 billion years.
All right. Well, hopefully that can maintain pace, because we need... this is our last season of the year. We need Anime of the Year contenders. So
we need at least one good show this season.
We gotta pad those lists.
There's always one good show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of these other shows I think are good, but they're not I think they're going to be more I think
there's good shows,
niche interest, but like if you like that kind of show, you like it type of thing. Whereas I feel like everybody should. If you like anime, you should watch Akudama Drive.
There's always one which comes out of nowhere, you know.
Yeah.
So, all right. That's gonna do it for this episode then. And just to do our housekeeping, you can follow us or check us out at theglorioblog.com. So we have all our other first looks up there. There's a lot of shows that we wrote about and watched but didn't have time to talk about on the podcast, so go ahead and check that out. I did a post that kind of that's just a big link dump basically. So you can check that out. Maybe I'll link it in the show notes. And if you follow us on Twitter at the Glorio blog, and you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean. The list is growing, and also you can check us out on YouTube. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, and that's going to do it. We'll see everybody next time.
"またない彼氏ってられない街に来る